Right now, a top international footballer is sitting in Boston, not because he chose to stay behind. He was blocked. A country that is supposed to be welcoming the world for this tournament looked at his file and said, "Not you." And what followed has turned into a full-blown diplomatic standoff between two nations, a legal firestorm, and a question that cuts to the very heart of this World Cup. Who exactly gets to show up? This is the Thomas Partey story, and it's bigger than football. For those who don't follow European football closely, Thomas Partey is one of the most recognizable names in the game. He's a 32-year-old midfielder from Ghana who spent 5 seasons at Arsenal in the English Premier League, one of the biggest clubs on the planet. He was signed for €50 million from Atletico Madrid back in 2020 and quickly became a cornerstone of Arsenal's midfield. Powerful, technically gifted, and experienced at the highest level. He now plays for Villarreal in La Liga, Spain's top division, after leaving Arsenal when his contract expired. For Ghana's national team, known as the Black Stars, he is one of the most important players in a generation. He's earned 59 caps for his country since making his international debut in 2016 and featured in 7 of Ghana's 10 World Cup qualifying matches. He is the kind of player teams build their tactics around, the kind of player fans fly across the world to watch. But Partey has been living under a very dark cloud for the past year. He's accused of 5 counts of rape relating to 2 women, as well as a charge of sexual assault against a 3rd woman. Offenses alleged to have taken place between April 2021 and June 2022 during his time at Arsenal. London's Metropolitan Police have now charged him with 7 counts of rape and 1 count of sexual assault. Partey has appeared in court and he has been clear. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His trial, originally scheduled to begin in November at Southwark Crown Court, has since been pushed back to June 2027. He's currently out on bail with a legal condition that he does not contact the individuals who made the allegations. He has not been convicted of anything. That is a legal fact. But what happened next, when he tried to enter Canada, is where this story gets complicated. Ghana's opening World Cup match is against Panama in Toronto, Canada on Wednesday, June 17th. The Black Stars have been based out of Boston in the United States during their preparation, training, acclimatizing, getting ready for what could be a defining tournament for the program. Thomas Partey traveled with the squad to the United States. U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirmed that their officers inspected and admitted Partey into the United States on June 3rd, noting that while they were aware of his pending court case, he had not been convicted of a crime and was admitted after being issued a visa. But Canada was a different story. FIFA confirmed in an official statement that Partey would be unable to travel from Ghana's team base camp in Boston to Canada for the opening match against Panama, as his visa application had been refused by the Canadian government. The statement from FIFA was blunt. It said, FIFA is not involved in the immigration processes of host countries, including the adjudication of visas. As with previous FIFA events, the host government ultimately determines who receives a visa and is admitted into the country. So what is Canada's reasoning? A spokesperson for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada stated that every person seeking to come to Canada is assessed individually based on the facts available and the law that applies, and that foreign nationals can be found inadmissible even without a foreign conviction. That last part is crucial. You don't need to be found guilty in a court of law to be barred from entering Canada. If authorities have reasonable grounds to believe someone has committed serious offenses, that can be enough to deny entry. And in Partey's case, with 7 counts of rape on the table, even without a verdict, Canada made its call. Canada's Minister of Immigration issued a statement noting that the country is proud to be a host of the 2026 FIFA World Cup and is working to facilitate a successful event while maintaining the safety and security of Canadians, and reaffirming that hosting major events does not change Canada's immigration laws. Clear, firm, and not up for negotiation, at least not immediately. Ghana did not take this quietly. The Ghanaian government criticized Canada's decision as extremely unfair and threatened legal action in a bid to overturn the refusal. Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs dispatched an official note of protest to Global Affairs Canada on June 11th, requesting that Canada review its decision. Ghana's Sports Minister, Kofi Adams, went even further. He stated publicly, "If any Ghanaian is touched anywhere, we will not keep quiet over it. Through the appropriate channels, we have communicated to the rightful authorities and are requesting for them to use all processes to review and give opportunity for a review of such a decision that we think frowns on international laws and conventions, which both Ghana and Canada are party to. The government's statement also argued that the decision was at odds with Partey's significant national and global sporting considerations, and urged Canada to rescind it in the interest of fairness and cardinal principles of common law. Ghana is also reportedly exploring the option of a judicial review before the Federal Court of Canada, pursuing every available diplomatic, legal, and administrative remedy. It's worth pausing here for a second to acknowledge what we're actually watching. This is a sovereign nation going to bat for a player who faces serious criminal allegations, and they're doing it on the world stage, during the most watched sporting event on the planet. Whether one agrees with Ghana's position or not, the fact that it has reached this level tells you everything about how high the stakes are, both politically and on the pitch. Ghana coach Carlos Queiroz had already made his position clear when he selected Partey for the World Cup squad. He stated, "I don't have any comments about my own decisions. He is here, so what are we talking about? This is not for me or you to make a judgment about. Let the events run their normal course. Let the river flow, and one day when the river meets the ocean, we are going to find the truth." That quote will stay with people. It's poetic, but it's also a coach trying to navigate an almost impossible situation. And as of now, he's doing it without one of his most important players for the opener. To understand how unusual Thomas Partey's situation is, or isn't, you have to zoom out. Because while Ghana's fight with Canada is the most diplomatically charged immigration story at this World Cup, it is far from the only one. And when you line them all up, a picture emerges that is far bigger than one footballer from Accra trying to cross a border in Ontario. Let's start with the case that drew the most attention before Partey's story broke. Omar Abdul Kadir Artan, 34, was set to make history as the first Somali referee to officiate at a World Cup. He arrived at Miami International Airport with a valid U.S. visa and full FIFA accreditation. He had every document he was supposed to have. He was detained, questioned for around 11 hours, and then refused entry. U.S. Customs and Border Protection cited vetting concerns, without elaborating further. The White House's own World Cup Task Force director told NPR the call was justified, and declined to explain what those reasons were. Artan returned home to Somalia to a hero's welcome, and made a point of staying positive publicly. But the incident immediately sparked a conversation about geopolitics and whether race and national origin were being disguised as security concerns. Iraq striker Ayman Hussein was detained and questioned for nearly 7 hours at Chicago's O'Hare Airport before being allowed into the country. His team's photographer, Talal Salah, was denied entry entirely after being held for more than 10 hours. Think about what that means in practice. An international footballer preparing for the biggest tournament of his life, sitting in an immigration holding room at an American airport for 7 hours, while his teammates are somewhere else eating, resting, and preparing. The psychological toll alone is significant. Switzerland striker Briel Embolo, who plays his club football in Europe and is a recognizable face in world football, arrived late to join his teammates after his U.S. visa was delayed due to additional security checks linked to a previous legal case. Embolo was eventually admitted, but the delay was enough to disrupt his preparation before a World Cup group stage match. Then there is Iran, arguably the most geopolitically complicated story of this entire tournament. The 2026 World Cup marks the first time in its history that a host nation is at war with a participating country, following the outbreak of hostilities between the U.S. and Iran in February. For months, nobody was sure Iran's players would be allowed into the United States at all. The answer came 10 days before their first game. Players were granted visas, though some support staff were denied. Iran's original training base in Tucson was scrapped entirely. The team relocated to Tijuana, Mexico, crossing the border to play their matches on the U.S. West Coast before returning to Mexico each time. Iranian state media reported that 15 officials were denied U.S. visas entirely. Iran's fan ticket allocation was reportedly restricted as well. And it wasn't just players and officials. The International Sports Press Association wrote an open letter to FIFA, claiming that Iranian and African journalists were denied visas to cover the tournament for their home countries. While some journalists received single-entry visas, that restriction meant they could not follow their national team across all 3 host nations. limiting coverage of their own country's World Cup campaign. Journalists from Ivory Coast and Senegal, countries on the U.S. travel ban list, were among those affected. Fans, too. Supporters from Morocco and Scotland who had spent thousands of dollars on flights, hotels, and match tickets reported having their travel documents denied or revoked just days before they were due to travel. Several Scotland fans had their ESTA visa waivers, the standard travel authorization British citizens use for short stays in the United States, unexpectedly switched from approved to travel not authorized without any explanation. Some faced missing the tournament entirely while waiting for the issue to be resolved. Palestinian Football Association President Jibril Rajoub stated that the United States refused to grant him a visa to attend the World Cup, a football federation president, blocked from a football tournament. Now here is the critical context. None of this is how previous World Cups have worked. While previous tournaments were not entirely free of visa disputes, there is little precedent in recent history for the scale and diversity of the cases being reported in 2026. Past host nations went out of their way to make travel easier, not harder. For the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, organizers introduced special event visas and dedicated processing systems for football supporters. Ticket holders from countries requiring visas benefited from simplified procedures, and some fans were granted free visas on arrival. Brazil adopted a similar approach in 2014. Qatar did the same in 2022 through its Haya card system, which served as both a fan identification document and an entry permit, essentially giving tournament ticket holders streamlined access to the country. The United States took a fundamentally different approach. Rather than creating a visa-free or visa-light entry system, Washington maintained its existing immigration framework. FIFA's own guidance made clear that a World Cup ticket does not guarantee entry and that all supporters remain subject to standard visa requirements and security screening. The reasons are not mysterious. The Trump administration entered office with a set of travel restrictions that predate the World Cup, and those restrictions were not dismantled just because a sporting event was coming to town. A carve-out was included in the travel ban policy specifically for athletes, coaches, and necessary support staff traveling for the World Cup, but fans were explicitly excluded from that carve-out, which means the very people who were supposed to fill the stadiums, bring the atmosphere, and make this the celebration that FIFA promised. They were left to navigate one of the most stringent immigration systems in the world on their own without any special accommodation. An international sports lawyer summarized the stakes plainly, noting that major sporting events rely not only on logistics and security, but also on atmosphere and perception, and that when the entry process itself becomes a controversy, it shapes how the entire world remembers the tournament. That is the world Thomas Partey is navigating right now. Yes, his case involves a specific set of criminal allegations that make it distinct from a referee being blocked on security grounds or a fan having their ESTA revoked without explanation. But the underlying issue is the same one. In 2026, for the first time in modern World Cup history, the border has become one of the defining stories of the tournament itself. And whether that sits comfortably with the tagline of football's biggest celebration is a question the world is still trying to answer. The Partey story is dramatic on its own, but it doesn't exist in isolation. There's been a wider pattern of immigration issues surrounding this World Cup, and it's one of the most significant controversies the tournament has faced before a ball has been kicked. A Somali referee named Omar Abdulkadir Artan, selected by FIFA itself to officiate at the tournament, was denied entry into the United States and turned away at Miami Airport. FIFA President Gianni Infantino addressed this at a press conference, saying that FIFA is powerless when it comes to overriding government immigration decisions and telling reporters that fans should chill about the situation. He called the US, Canada, and Mexico the right host for this World Cup, but acknowledged that visa issues were an unavoidable reality of organizing an event of this scale across 3 sovereign nations with 3 different immigration systems. The message from all 3 host governments has been consistent. The World Cup does not grant anyone a pass on immigration law. Sporting considerations don't override national security or legal processes, and that is a position most people can understand in principle, but which creates real, tangible problems when you're trying to pull off the most globally inclusive sporting event in history. What this reveals is a fundamental tension at the heart of co-hosting a tournament like this. You are simultaneously trying to open your borders to the entire world and maintain the immigration standards your government has set. Those two things don't always align. And in this World Cup, the friction is visible. So here's where things stand. Thomas Partey, one of Ghana's most important players, is in Boston while his teammates prepare for a World Cup opener in Canada without him. His country's government is filing official diplomatic protests and exploring legal action. Canada is standing firm. FIFA is watching from the sidelines, saying it has no power over any of this. A Somali referee who earned the right to officiate at the world's biggest tournament was turned away at the US border. Ticket prices for the final have hit levels that most of the global soccer-loving public could never dream of affording. Fan groups have filed formal complaints with the European Commission. And through all of it, the World Cup is happening. Mexico beat South Africa in the opener. 48 nations are competing. 16 cities are hosting games. Hundreds of thousands of fans are already in stadiums across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The football itself is extraordinary. That part is not in dispute, but the controversies surrounding this tournament, the immigration crackdowns, the astronomical prices, the diplomatic incidents, are a reminder that when you try to hold the world's most global event across 3 countries with complex political realities, you're going to hit friction, real friction, the kind that affects real people. Thomas Partey's situation is the most striking example of that friction right now. He hasn't been convicted of anything. He is presumed innocent under the law, but he is also facing some of the most serious criminal charges a person can face, and Canada has decided that is enough. Whether that decision is fair is a conversation that will keep going long after this World Cup ends. What is clear is this: the 2026 World Cup is already one of the most eventful, most controversial, and most scrutinized tournaments in the history of the sport. And it has barely begun. The full picture of this tournament is still being written. Ghana versus Panama is Wednesday, June 17th in Toronto. With or without Thomas Partey, the world will be watching. Stay tuned for more updates as the World Cup 2026 continues to unfold. If this breakdown was useful, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There's a lot more coming from this tournament over the next few weeks.